Hello. Hello, everybody. Everybody. Congratulate Karsten. Austria, we have just gotten the update. Austria has won Eurovision. Austria um, with their remarkable singer. Thank you, No Name Bacon. I appreciate you. So it's been, what, a week or so? And today was the Eurovision final. I know that most Americans couldn't give a fuck. Hi, Gata. How are you? Hi, Anna. Hi, everybody. Hello, my darlings. It is good to see everyone. So Austria is the big winner. You know, there was like a toss up as to whether it would be Austria or Sweden. And congratulations, Karsten. Austria is the big winner. I was telling Karsten today that I was looking up on Google how many of these Eurovision acts have gone on to become, make something of their win. We all know ABBA, obviously. ABBA was launched at Eurovision. Celine Dion, representing Switzerland, became a huge star. Katrina and the Waves. I did not know that Katrina and the Waves had won Eurovision, and this was after Walking on Sunshine came out. So I had no idea. So you live and learn, right? Anyway, so Mazel Tov to Austria. I know that it's been a nail biter. Thank you, Glitterbug. I appreciate it. I decided my hair is so out of control right now. I decided I would sweep it aside. So I had to come up with this solution for my hair problem. I'm getting a haircut on Wednesday. It's going to be my last haircut before I go into treatment for the big C. So probably my last haircut for months. Yeah. Depending on, of course, when I get my surgery and when I go into treatment. And speaking of cancer, thank you, Bacon. Speaking of cancer, now I know that certain people have made it abundantly clear that they could give a fuck less that I am ill, that I'm going into treatment. They couldn't give a shit that I had a traffic accident. Thank God I am now walking. Thank God my rib healed up pretty quickly. Thank God. And I know that people have made it abundantly clear that they couldn't give a fuck that I have cancer and that I'm facing all these months of treatment and so on. I am going to ask, hello, reindeer. Long time no see. It is very good to see you. I'm going to ask everybody one last time. Not that I expect anybody to respect my wishes or listen to anything that I have to say or that Negz has to say. I am asking that you leave us the fuck alone. Some of you have overstayed your welcome. That's all I'm going to say. Some of you need to give it a fucking rest. Okay? I am facing a very serious health problem that is going to require months of treatment. I am going to ask one last time, leave us the fuck alone. Stop lying about us. Stop stalking us. Stop everything. Give us a fucking break. Now that I have asked you yet again to stop, from now on, everything that is uploaded, everything that is done to come after us, to lie about us, to stir the pot, whatever, I am going to classify as stalking and harassment. Not that I'm going to do anything about it. I'm not taking anybody to court. I am not pursuing anything. I am just saying that we have had enough. Find somebody else to go over. Find somebody else to spurg about. Okay? And find somebody else to talk about. Some of you have Twitter feeds that consist entirely of lies about the two of us. Or Why don't you all come together as a collective and make merch out of my cancer? Wouldn't that be fun? Some of you look like you could use a few extra bucks. Make merch out of the cancer. Get really creative and show the entire world what a piece of shit you are. Do it. Anyway, hang on a second. I need to turn up this fan. Hold on a second. It's a little bit warm here. Okay, that's better. Yeah, well, some people have been human garbage for a year and a half, longer. Yeah. So, one last time, leave us alone. Okay? If you have a problem, if you feel that I have taken somebody away from you, if you feel that I have put a block between you and somebody else, get the fuck over it. You're an adult. You're an adult. Move on. Move the fuck on. Wow, thank you, Jen Talks Books. I appreciate you. Thank you for the 10 memberships. Thank you. And for those of you who got the memberships, I hope that you enjoy them. Thank you so much. And once again, big ups to Austria for winning Eurovision. I know that for us Americans, we don't appreciate. Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it. I really do. I appreciate it. And I don't know if you are, Jen, I don't know if you are interested in nonfiction, but I recommended a book yesterday. I don't remember if you were here or not. It was a book by... the last name is Godwin, and the name of the book is When a Crocodile Eats the Sun, and it's a memoir of growing up in Zimbabwe, and it's very, very good. It's very good. Okay, I have some fun stuff today, because I was going through YouTube, and I was, as usual, I was just turned off and disgusted by some of the shit that I saw on there. So I thought, gee, what can be fun? What can be fun? Well, I found something this morning, and I thought we would get started with that. So are you guys ready? Because this story has a little bit of everything. It's got the royal family. It's got the Beckhams. We've got a little bit of everything, and most importantly, it is a segment from a television show. You're welcome, Jen, and thank you. It's got a segment from a television show that is hosted by Dr. David Bull, who is my favorite news anchor in any country at this point. So we are going to hear what he had to say with his guest. The name of the video is Two Spoiled Rich Idiots, and it's about Harry and Meghan, and we're going to deal with some Beckham drama. So let's hear what Dr. David Bull and his guest had to say. See, Karsten, Eurovision final, Sweden's Kaj leads odds with sauna-themed song. Okay, well, you were wrong. Austria. It's Austria FTW. Austria for the win. So, all right. Let's give this a listen. This is some shit, you guys, so I hope you're all ready for this, because this is really something. Let's go.
Go through it. So let's do some serious stories now.
Yeah, there's lots of serious, quite shocking stories. If I can take you to page 1 of The Sun today, this is quite unbelievable. You know, one of the biggest kind of R&B stars in the world here.
Tell us more.
So he's been, I mean, unbelievable news when I found out.
Oh, I totally forgot about this. And we have Chris Brown drama. And this is big, guys. This is fat, okay? Everybody listen.
Chris Brown being held in UK custody on GBH charge before going on this massive tour, this huge tour. In case you don't know who Chris Brown is, he dated Rihanna about a decade ago.
And he
You
beat
had
the
this
shit
guy
out of her.
who, in his younger years, sang with the church. He became the biggest R&B star of all time. He made something like $70 million last year doing
Wow.
this tour that he's about to do just in the States. He sold 140 million records. Now, there have been problems dogging him over the last decade, and people saying, you know, he's very much a bad boy.
No, he's not a bad boy. He's a piece of shit woman abuser. Let's use the appropriate terms.
This incident stems back a couple of years ago in London, where it was alleged he hit a music producer with a tequila bottle.
Uh-oh.
So he flies into Manchester, and the police knew he was coming into Manchester, and they've arrested him.
He flew in for the tour and got arrested.
Yes, he flew in to rehearse for the shows coming up. The first show, this is all being cast in doubt now. The first show is supposed to be on June the 8th in Amsterdam, but it looks like he's still going to be in prison. They're saying he's going to be moved to Strangeways.
Really?
So this is unbelievable. This is a huge, huge American star who's found himself in custody. Friends had to deliver a KFC, apparently, to him.
Friends had to deliver KFC to him, right? In jail. All right. Can somebody please get in touch with the Trump White House and tell Trump to stay the fuck out of this, okay? We don't want him sticking his nose in the way he did for, who was it, A$AP Rocky in Sweden? Let the justice system work its magic. Let it go down its own majestic course. Chris Brown has been overdue. He is violent. He is sick. For those of you who saw the pictures of Rihanna after Chris Brown beat her up, it was shocking and hideous and disgusting. He's never had to account for his violence and his behavior. So let the Brits deal with him. And for God's sake, Trump, just don't try to get him sprung, all right? Let him pay the price.
While he was being held at the police office in Salford. So all eyes on this to see what's going to happen, but it would seem that there was a strategy. People knew when he was coming into this country, and that they acted as soon as he did, in fact, come in. He's been accused over the years of just being a really bad boy, you know.
No, he's a woman-beating piece of shit. I cannot believe that the British actually arrested someone. This, to me, is like the takeaway. They arrested somebody who deserved to be arrested, a violent hoodlum. Let's continue.
Plenty of kind of previous allegations of behaving badly and behaving with violence as well.
I mean, it's quite graphic, the detail here as to the alleged offence, but it sounds pretty grievous.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it shows no one's above the law.
No, he doesn't.
So
And
that's
this is a shocker. Most people think, oh, he could buy his way out, but no, not in this case.
No.
That tour is supposed to be huge. The dates of that tour, he's playing places like the Co-op Arena in Manchester and Villa Park, and, you know, the big Tottenham. These fit like 80,000 people in. So this is a big, big tour. It could have been one of the highest grossing shows of the whole year.
Oh, well.
So watch this space. Watch this space.
Right, let's move on to Sean Diddy Combs' trial.
Yeah, I just thought as this tour goes on week by week, we should give you an overview as to, I mean, this is massive. All eyes on this tour, this person who might be kind of brought in to these videos, these
You'll
freak
have to
off
tell
parties.
me more. I'm not across this one at all.
So where do you want to begin? I mean, Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy as he was known in the years.
I love listening to the British talk about the P. Diddy trial. Puff Daddy. P. Diddy. Isn't it adorable listening to the British talk about it? I just love it. By the way, for those of you who are in chat, what do you think is going to happen? Combs, yes. P. Diddy Combs, Sean Combs. How many of you think he's going to be found guilty? How many of you think that it's over for him and that the jury is going to come back with a guilty verdict? I'm on the fence right now. I'm not certain that this is going to turn out the way everybody assumes it will. This is not based on any inside information, any reporting, anything. I'm just, you never know. Juries are very unpredictable. And a lot of juries are swayed by celebrities. So I have no idea. I don't know. I don't think it's the slam dunk that people assumed it would be. So, all right, let's continue.
I'll stop with all the previous names. Was a huge kind of record company boss, media mogul. He has been he's pleaded not guilty to racketeering, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. Right. And his ex, Cassie Ventura, is almost like the star witness. Now, she's been questioned by both camps over this week. And it's really lurid stuff. I mean, I don't want to go into detail, but there's these kind of sex parties known as freak-off parties that she was involved in. She's been saying, look, I did love him, but I was scared of him, and I was brought into this. There's also this video, awful video, filmed in a Los Angeles hotel with him attacking her. The world's seen these bits and pieces.
Right, but he's not on trial for that. And I think that Artem makes a good point. How many more victims are there? Are any of them underage? I mean, we've been hearing a lot of rumors and a lot of, tittle-tattle and gossip and speculation, but it remains to be seen. Because I had read some analysis of the proceedings so far, and what I read was that Cassie did not come off very well, pregnant or not, and that there was a certain question about consent and whether or not she was a victim or whether or not she was a co-conspirator. So I don't know. I really don't know. That's why celebrity trials are really tough. I mean, let's not forget the John Landis, the John Landis trial, where the segment that he had filmed was the one where the helicopter malfunctioned, and Vic Morrow, the actor, was beheaded, and a child was killed, and John Landis was not convicted, even though it was obvious that something had gone very, very wrong on that movie set, and that it was the Twilight Zone movie. So you never know. You never know with celebrities. Same thing with Robert Blake. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that Robert Blake killed his ex-wife. None whatsoever. What happened to him? So it's always very dodgy. It's always very tough. With famous people on the stand, or as the people who are going through trials. Go on.
So this is a court case. We're 5 days in. She appeared on the stand really heavily pregnant, giving her version of events, saying that, he's a very powerful man. She was frightened of him. She kind of went along with what he wanted to do. But it's just getting started here. And it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of nervous people. There's pictures today in the Sun of Leonardo DiCaprio hanging out with him. And, of course, Justin Bieber in the past has had a lot to do with him. So the big question is, how much did they know? How much did everybody know that this kind of behavior was going on in the background? Because it would seem that a lot of people knew about it. Whether they were involved in it is a different thing.
Right.
But there could be many, many people due to, who could be asked to kind of testify and could be part of this court case.
Right.
So there could be a lot of stuff. There's videos of these parties as well at the moment that are being shown within the court. But of course, you never know what might leak out.
Quite. And obviously it's an ongoing case.
Yes.
This I read in the Telegraph this morning about the Beckhams.
Here we go.
You're going to tell us more about this. The headline is How Brooklyn Joined Prince Harry in the Fight Back Against Their Perfect Families. I read this morning. So this is about Brooklyn and Harry teaming up, having dinner, discussing the similarities between their families. Yeah. And I just thought, you two spoiled, rich idiots.
I mean,
Okay, now, before we continue, and I should have done this preface at the beginning, Harry and William have been friends or were friends with the Beckhams for decades, David Beckham in particular. Meghan Markle, the story goes that Meghan Markle was very, very jealous of the Beckhams' money, and that she started this whispering campaign that Victoria Beckham was going around spilling secrets about them and about the royal family to the British press, which created a huge rift between Harry and Meghan and the Beckhams, David and Victoria. There was not a shred of evidence to back up Meghan's theory about Victoria Beckham, and as a matter of fact, for years it's been understood and known that Meghan Markle was the biggest leaker in the palace. And if she didn't have the guts to go out and spread these stories on her own, then she would get a surrogate to do it, like a friend. Well, she doesn't have any friends left. One of them was the daughter of former Canadian Prime Minister Rooney. They were very close. I believe it was Rooney. So she's fallen out with all of these people. And so she decided to stab the Beckhams in the back by smearing Victoria. And now we have this mess of a story. So let's continue.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
No.
Showbiz.
Do you want to just explain it? Because there's a picture here, isn't there, of the extended Beckham family here.
Yes.
And just what is going on under this? So this is after Brooklyn Beckham skipped his father's 50th birthday party. They thought the family might come together.
Yes.
It doesn't look like
there's tons of this. You know, Mother's Day, they were the only people who didn't reach out and say what a great mother Victoria Beckham is. Look, there's...
Okay, so Brooklyn is shading his parents. He appears to have cut off contact, did not show up to his father's 50th, didn't reach out or didn't address or salute his mom on Mother's Day. And Brooklyn Beckham is married to a very, 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 very wealthy heiress, beautiful woman, who supposedly has some acting career or whatever, which is about as distinguished as Meghan Markle's acting career. So something is going on with Brooklyn Beckham and his parents. Okay? And why would that be? Well, let's continue.
We don't know for certain, and there's lots of people with different speculations, but it would seem that when Brooklyn got together with Nicola, it would seem that she has kind of driven a wedge in between the family happiness.
Similar with Harry and Meghan.
Well,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes.
But although today's claims are that it's Meghan and Nicola who formed a bond at a recent dinner party.
Not
and
Harry
both-
and Brooklyn.
Exactly that. So this is the current thing, that it was actually them two getting together.
No.
And it's
Okay, so we've already got Harry, Meghan Markle, destroyed the relationship between Harry and his family, his brother, his father, nieces and nephews, etc. King Charles has never met Harry's children. Never. He's never met that set of grandchildren. And that was because of Meghan. Meghan created that wedge between Harry, his father, and his family. Now we've got Meghan behind the scenes. She is manipulating Brooklyn's wife. And now Brooklyn is estranged from his parents. What a remarkable coincidence. So, you know what? I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Let's continue.
been leaked that they were at this kind of, the home wreckers get together, if you know what I mean. That's what it's being told. But also, I mean, I spoke about this with Alex last week. There's rumours that it's actually Romeo, who's the youngest son, and his girlfriend that caused the latest spate of problems with apparently she's not good enough for the family and stuff. So it would seem that we're a right mess, that family. I mean, it's nice to know, isn't it? You can have all the money in the world and the glitz and the glamour and the opportunities, and yet you could still be families are difficult. Families are very
well,
difficult.
I think also the thing is that they've got so much money that they have no sense of purpose.
No, they don't.
So these kids, so what I read into this, Brooklyn and Harry are similar in that they have absolutely no sense of purpose. And so therefore they're sort of drifting around trying to think that they're important. I mean, when Harry was good and looked after the veterans, then great.
Yes.
But then again, with Brooklyn Beckham, what do you do when your parents are so successful and so wealthy?
But he started off okay. He did those disastrous cooking videos. People were interested. He seemed to, before she came along, it would seem that things were quite sweet within the family unit. It's only actually, something's happened in the last couple of years.
It's the wife.
It's her family, I think.
Right.
And
It's
his
the wife.
family. It's the wife.
It's the wife.
It's the wife.
Yeah. The eldest son believes he's been made to feel like he's an idiot and stupid with his wife's support. Yeah, because she's wheedled in there, so
Yes.
it makes it look like she's
she is.
supportive, but she's not. Actually.
Remember, she's from a very powerful
very
family.
wealthy
as well.
family.
They're very rich. So it's all to play for within this. But what a mess.
what
And you would
a
have thought, I mean,
mess.
so that, you know, David's 50th took place the other week, and it was in London. Brooklyn was in London. So people thought, well, maybe maybe he would go along to his dad's 50th.
Well, you would have thought so.
And he didn't.
So I'm being told that Brooklyn used to date Romeo Beckham's girlfriend.
Oh my goodness.
Right, okay.
Did you know that?
Well, I mean, I heard rumours, but I hear that it's more to do with her dating Madonna's son.
Okay, why do we hate Meghan? Yes, I will let you know. And thank you for the super chat. Meghan was initially welcomed by the English with open arms, and she was considered to be exactly the sort of breath of fresh air that the royal family needed, that she was an American, that she had her own career, that she was a bit older than Harry. She was divorced multiple times, but then again, you know, Harry is not first in line to the throne, so they didn't have to put him through, or even William, the ridiculous farce that his father went through when they went on the virgin hunt to find him a spouse, and poor Diana got caught in that dragnet. And Meghan made an effort to, well, she was a sort of, I think she was sort of estranged from her family already. Not her mother, but her father and her siblings, her half-siblings. Meghan proceeded, when she couldn't get her way, and there were a lot of stories leading up to the wedding about what a terrible, spoiled mess she was. She stomped her feet until she got her way. Harry made it clear that she could get whatever she wanted, and she did. The only thing that she didn't get, I guess, was she didn't get to wear the tiara that she wanted. She got the banana cake she wanted. She got a minister from the United States that she wanted. She got a gospel choir that she wanted. The wedding was, it was a royal wedding, but it was not a stuffy royal wedding. And most importantly, the future King of England, the current King Charles, walked her down the aisle because her father wasn't there. Her father was very, very ill, but her mother was there. So, after all this took place, and Meghan made it abundantly clear that she did not want to fulfill any of the royal duties. She wanted the clothing allowance. She wanted all the pomp and circumstance. She wanted all the benefits of being a royal, but she didn't want to work. You know, she didn't want to go to those boring ribbon-cutting ceremonies or those other get-togethers or those other official events where, you know, you go and little girls come up to you and they give you a bouquet of flowers and they curtsy at you, and it's all very, very simple, right? It's dull, but it's literally the least that you can do in exchange for living a very lavish lifestyle, okay? And then she started, I mean, I am convinced that when she and Harry got married, the reason he picked her was because she was an American. She wasn't part of that, like, royal orbiter set. And that he really did not want to marry a woman who wanted to stay within that circle. You know, that he had already been making plans, but he wanted to get out, but he didn't know how to do it. And so he picked this American bride, and they started cooking up this plot for Megxit, you know, to get out of the UK and to distance themselves from this family. Now, they didn't want to distance themselves from the titles or the money, but they wanted to distance themselves from all the boring obligations that they had to fulfill, you know. And then they sat down for that interview with Oprah, where they both told so many lies about the family and made up this lurid, they painted this lurid picture of Meghan having to withstand so many racist attacks against her. Forgetting, of course, that the future King of England walked her down the aisle. Forgetting that the British public was very happy to see her marry Harry. Forgetting that she had been greeted very, very warmly. But she was very abusive to her sister-in-law, to Catherine. And she was arrogant. And she, like I said, she didn't want to fulfill any of the dull royal duties. And so she decided to smear the family. And one of the biggest lies that she told, and these are lies that are so easily disprovable. I mean, he told a whole pack of lies too, but she made up a whole story that she and Harry had actually married in secret before the official royal wedding. And the Archbishop of Canterbury had to come out and say that is absolutely categorically false. They married on the day of the royal wedding. There was no secret ceremony. They didn't elope. They didn't come to me and get married in secret. That is absolutely false. And a lot of people in the UK started to turn against her and say, wait a second, you know, why are you lying, first of all? And second of all, where did you come up with this horse's ass story that you were rejected by the British public? That's not true. The two of you chose to leave. You chose to leave, you know. And then she made a big deal about how when Archie was born, that he wasn't given an automatic royal title. Well, that's not how it works. Queen Elizabeth was still alive. And so Archie, as the great-grandson of the Queen, was not entitled to a prince title or the title that she thought he deserved. And then they made a big show of saying, well, we don't want any titles for the kids. But then she pressed it. It's been a rolling clusterfuck of mess where she bit the hand that fed her. And yeah, okay, so she got a bit of a drubbing in the press. So do all the royals. Okay, she's a famous person. She married the most eligible bachelor, definitely in the UK, if not the world. And she thought that she was going to be able to swan around the UK in her little wardrobe and her jewelry and not have to lift a finger in exchange for being treated for living that kind of lifestyle. And over time, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And now she's pissed off people in the United States too. And so is Harry. Harry was recently making, yes, exactly. And yes. Recently, Harry was saying that, you know, he was hoping to mend fences and all this, like, and he keeps, and he lost this lawsuit because, again, they chose to give up their titles, not the Duke and Duchess titles, but they chose to give up a lot of this shit, right? But Harry thinks that he is entitled to a level of protection that none of his cousins get, and they are working royals. And he made a complete fool out of himself when the court said no. And so he wanted to appeal directly to his father, but he's basically cut his father off, and his father has cancer. And his father is reportedly heartbroken by this estrangement from Harry. And what's particularly hurtful to everyone is that Harry was widely recognized as Queen Elizabeth's favorite grandchild. So awful. The disrespect that they've shown the king, the disrespect they showed to the queen when she was still alive, there's no justification for it. None whatsoever. And now we've seen Meghan fail at every project she's taken on. The cooking show, the lifestyle show, the podcasts. You know, she did something with Serena Williams because they used to be very, very close friends. I don't think they're speaking anymore. So she's really like turned a lot of people off. So that is the shorthand version of what happened with Meghan.
I can't keep up.
Rocco Ritchie and things that came out of that
'Cause he's not
relationship.
poor.
Well, exactly. I mean, you know, it's a right mess. Bang your heads together and get on with it.
Oh,
you know?
for goodness sake. And I don't want to see it written about in the newspapers. Not interested. Take your problems
I see a
away.
podcast coming.
Oh,
Meghan and Nicola.
No, Meghan and Nicola. Yeah.
The Homewreckers United.
Which will have absolutely no ratings at all.
Okay, well, that was Dr. David Bull, and he's an actual medical doctor, which is why I call him doctor. He hosts a show on Talk TV. And if you guys ever want a really fun thing to listen to on the weekend, because he broadcasts on the weekend, look up David Bull, Talk TV. His show is so much fun. It is so great. He is so shady. And so wonderful, and I absolutely love him. He is by far my favorite news anchor in any country, on any show. And if you want a fun time while watching the news, definitely tune in to Dr. David Bull. You know what? Honestly, Kay, I think that was something that she probably had in mind. I think because they want to monetize everything, right? They want to monetize every aspect of their lives. And they were told by the royal family that they can't use the royal crest. They can't do all this shit that they were trying to do. And Harry has had some problems with his Africa charity. It's been a mess. It's been a mess. And I am very, very sad because if there was one thing that we could admire about Harry was his role in the Invictus Games and the way that he was looking out for, yeah, that's flopping. And we could also admire Harry because he was looking out for, wounded veterans, and he was so devoted to that cause, and then everything went by the wayside. It's very, very sad. Very sad. So, yes. Well, that was the other ridiculous lie that she told in that interview. She made it sound like she didn't know who Harry was. When she went to the UK, she went with a specific intent of landing a wealthy British man. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's perfectly okay. But she also said that she didn't know anything about Harry or the royal family before she went to the UK, which was a complete fucking lie. Her friends came out and said she was a big admirer of Princess Diana, and she knew all about the royal family. She had studied them. So she's just a liar, and she lies about the stupidest fucking shit, too, that is so easily provably false, I mean, it's almost like she thinks that she can erase her entire past before she went to the UK, and that there aren't people who have known her for years who can come out and say, no, she was very interested in the royal family. She was a fan of Princess Diana's. Come on now. What is the point of lying about that? What is the point of lying? I mean, if you were an admirer of Harry's mother, just come out and say so. She was one of the most admired and famous women in the world. There's nothing wrong with admitting that. So, yeah. So it's a problem. She's got a lot of problems. Okay, now I want to I agree. Catherine is doing a fantastic job. A really fantastic job. She's very elegant. She's very classy. She knows when to keep her mouth shut. She knows when to smile. She knows when to graciously accept a bouquet of flowers from a curtsying little girl. She carries out her royal duties. She's not a pain in the ass. And apparently, King Charles had always wanted a daughter. And so he's become very attached to William's daughters. He has daughters. No, he has one. He has one daughter, Charlotte. So he's become very attached to her. And it's really sad because when you think that, well, if he always wanted a daughter, you know, Harry has a daughter. And these are grandchildren who are not allowed to develop a relationship with their grandfather or their cousins or their aunts and uncles. And this is all because of Harry's stubbornness and because of Meghan's stubbornness. And honestly, Harry is not the brightest bulb, okay? He just isn't. And he's been definitely manipulated by his wife, and I think that a lot of people resent that because Harry was a great favorite in the UK. Well. Harry really stepped in it with those charities. And the picture that is being painted of Harry's stewardship of those charities is not a very flattering one. I'm telling you, those two at this point seem like they could fuck up a soup sandwich. Seriously, that's an old expression. Okay. All right. Now, guess what's going to happen soon? Guess what's coming? Why, yes, you're right. We have the last installment of Mission Impossible coming. Now, I know that you guys are probably, maybe not all of you are Mission Impossible fans. I am a Mission Impossible fanatic. I love Mission Impossible. And as the Mission Impossible movies have been around since the 90s. We're talking 30 years of Mission Impossible. I was a big Mission Impossible skeptic, and I certainly was no Tom Cruise fan when I saw the first one, and I was sold. I loved it, and I have been a fanatic ever since. So I thought that in preparation for the last installment of Mission Impossible, we would have a tribute to Tom Cruise. Now, I know he's a nut. I know the Scientology thing. I get it. He's crazy. All right? He is nuts. And he is one of those celebrities that I make an exception for. I try to forget all the Scientology shit, and I just focus on what an amazing movie star he is. What an amazingly hard-working actor he is. So, my understanding is that there are stunts in the new movie that are just like next level. So I thought that we would take a look back at some of the more incredible, jaw-dropping stunts of the Mission Impossible films, because come on, they're fun, right? And I watched this video, and then I got so excited that I decided to go and watch video clips from Top Gun Maverick just to watch him taking off and landing on that aircraft carrier. And, he's amazing. He's amazing. And he's in his 60s. Motherfucker. I was telling Karsten that every single time that I see Tom Cruise either just smiling on the red carpet or in a stunt, or in a movie, all that I can think of is, God damn it. The answer is yes. Yes. Even though he didn't do very well last year. But yeah, absolutely. And I've heard critiques that, well, you know, now he's older and he needs an ensemble. Who cares? All right, let's take a look at this, because honestly, we could use some fun around here, right? So let's take a look at this.
Sponsored by Squarespace. When you think of stunts, it's hard not to think about the Mission Impossible franchise. Over the course of this franchise's 3-decade run, the creative juices over how to set the bar higher and higher on the death-defying stunts. It's
Memorial Day weekend, along with Lilo and Stitch. So we're going to have 2 big movies releasing that day. Lilo and Stitch is going to make a mint. They might as well roll the Brinks truck up. It's going to make over $1 billion very, very easily. So, yeah, Memorial Day. Yep. Let's watch.
Star actor Tom Cruise would do never seems to run out. And with the 8th installment and potential final installment of the franchise arriving, let's dive into Mission Impossible's wild world of stunts and take a look at how they pulled off the best from each film. Mission Impossible 1 was directed by Brian De Palma, who really set the tone for the entire franchise with some of the, in my opinion, best cinematography, if not the best of the series, with DP Stephen Burham at the helm. I mean, the scenes and lighting for the Prague at night sequence are just
beautiful.
Stunning. But hey, we're not here to talk about cinematography, are we? Well, you're in luck, as this movie also featured one of the most iconic stunts of the entire series, even if it was a bit simple. We're of course talking about the vault scene.
This is still, I mean, not in terms of like the artist, the complication of it. This is my favorite scene out of any Mission Impossible movie. I loved it. I was mesmerized when I first saw this film. It's beautiful.
Now, even though we called this stunt simple, it felt like anything but for Tom Cruise, who on early takes would keep hitting his face on the floor.
I mean, he keeps falling, hitting the ground.
And hitting his head on the floor, meaning he would just be tilting a little and have to put his hand down.
Tom told me that Brian would push him. He would say, "Come on, Cruise, you can do this."
They essentially had 2 guys behind the scenes to lower Cruise up and down, simulating the actor getting almost dropped on the floor in the movie. Quite a simple stunt, but very strenuous for the actor to try and keep his body off the ground while floating. And struggle they did in getting Cruise to not be so top-heavy that he would have any chance at all of not hitting his face on the ground. De Palma was about ready to just split the scene into 2 different shots, since they couldn't seem to get it and they had a lot of other pieces to film for the day. Cruise asked the director for just one more take and looked to—
Wait a minute. Let's go back a little bit. Let's go back a little bit.
Since they couldn't seem to get it, and they had a lot of other pieces to film for the day. Cruise asked—
Hey, Karsten, look at that handsome bastard. Oh, Tom, I never got his appeal, ever. Not A Few Good Men, not Taps, not, I mean, I thought that he should have won the Oscar for Born on the 4th of July. Not Risky Business, nothing. But once he started with this series, yeah. Okay, that was for you. All right, let's continue.
Asked the director for just one more take and looked to one of the British production members and asked for some pound coins, which he promptly put inside his shoes, hoping that it would counteract the weight at least some. This time around, Tom Cruise wouldn't hit his face.
Down on the floor, and I didn't touch, and I remember I was there. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't touch. And I was holding it, and I'm sweating, and then he just keeps rolling. And I just realized Brian is like, he's doing it. Kid. He is working it. It's like, we did it. I'm like, I am not going to stop. And I just hear him off camera, and he's got a very distinct laugh, and a very, you know, when he laughs, it makes me laugh. And I could just hear him start to howl, and he goes, all right, cut.
With the director enjoying watching Cruise struggle to stay off the ground, they were able to nail this shot in one sequence.
Amazing.
Showing off Cruise's tenacity that he would keep throughout the entire franchise of doing all he could to make the stunts look perfect. And honestly, the director forcing him to hold himself up for an extended period of time really worked for the tension of the scene and how quiet it was with no music.
Exactly. It was silent. That was one of the greatest things about that scene. Absolutely silent. And you saw the cutaway with Jean Reno, who was up in the rafters, and the rat is coming towards him because Jean Reno is the one who's holding him up in the movie. And it was just a beautifully scripted and orchestrated scene.
Absolute silence.
There he is, Jean Reno. See you later, Bree. Beautiful. Oh, here we go, Crochetter.
Moving on to Mission Impossible 2 and
Yep.
director John Woo, who has a love of both filming violent fight sequences and pigeons.
Not pigeons, doves, for God's sake. John Woo and his doves.
Some reason. But for all of his love of action sequences, Tom Cruise really scared the director.
He liked to do something
Look at him.
impossible, you know.
And it was his insistence on not using a stunt double for the opening sequence of the film of rock climbing that really would get to him. I was really mad that he wanted to do it, but I tried to stop him and I couldn't. I was so scared I was sweating. I couldn't even watch the monitor when we shot it.
You know, I had no idea when I saw this movie that was him. I thought that it was obviously a stuntman. No, it was him. And when I found out that it was him, or when I was told it was him, I said, no, that's a lie. This is bullshit. Nope, it was him. This rock climbing sequence was absolutely jaw-dropping, amazing, and I was absolutely terrified the whole time I was watching
That's
it.
because for this stunt, Tom Cruise would climb up 2,000 feet and rely solely on rigging that involved cantilevered trusses on the rim to direct ropes. Tom did all of the climbing except the slip off the overhang. His main stunt double, Keith Campbell, did that stunt. Tom was on the cliff parts of 5 days for the filming and never complained, which is rare for a big star, the director would say. Cruise recalled later on just how difficult it was to get this opening sequence, as they faced a lot of weather-related issues, and as he even had to push back against the studio, who wanted him to find a different opening sequence, but the weather kept delaying the shoot.
Yikes,
Cruise would
man.
say, "You feel the pressure of shooting something, and for 6 months they've been wanting me to change the opening sequence." And what happened is, I remember waking up the next day and I was just like, you have to confront this. And the sun was coming up and the wind was gone and the temperatures had come up, so I was like, let's just get to the top of the mountain and just start shooting it now. And shoot they did, using multiple cameras all running simultaneously to make sure they didn't miss a moment. But unfortunately, the shots kept getting out of focus. The director would say, we had 5 cameras on the cliff, including a helicopter camera, a camera on a crane, and cameramen hanging from safety cables. But we had focus problems, so we had to do it again and again.
Again and again. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? You're hanging on the edge of a rock and the cameras won't focus. Oh my God. But he's a trooper.
Again. But Tom would say, I'm okay, John. Don't worry. I want to do it one more time. Mission Impossible 3 is where J.J. Abrams fell in love with lens flares, something that we get into in our full video of Mission Impossible 3's production. But for stunts in this film, while pretty interesting in concept, lacks the sort of kinetic and grounded feel you get throughout the rest of the franchise. And that's because the stunts in this film seem to rely a lot on green screen and visual effects more than any other film in the series. And look, I'm not bashing VFX in this or not saying that there's not copious amounts of visual effects that were used in many of the other stunts throughout the franchise. Even though I must say, ILM did a pretty good job on it. Especially with this bridge stunt, where they had to combine 6 different non-motion controlled shots that, according to ILM VFX artist Todd Vaziri, took an enormous amount of roto, paint, 3D tracking, and 2D tracking to make it all work.
ILM is Industrial Light and Magic. And you know, this is the one Mission Impossible film I haven't been able to watch since because Philip Seymour Hoffman is in it, and it just makes me sad to see him.
While also, in the end, making sure that they could add J.J. Abrams' signature shaky cam look back to the whole thing. In fact, the main goal for director J.J. Abrams in this film was to combine both practical and VFX and a bunch of other elements to really confuse the viewers on how they actually pulled some of it off.
But the dream was that it just sort of all feels like it's really happening and you don't understand the machinations of sort of how it was done. But it really took the, synchronizing of a lot of departments and really talented people to sort of all pull off the one ultimate, illusion.
This, of course, made work difficult for VFX artists like Todd Vaziri, but even he would get a kick out of all of the theories that people came up with trying to figure out the bridge sequence. And according to him, none of those theories ever came close. So all in all, while the stunts of this film potentially suffer under the weight of what the other films in the franchise accomplished, there are some really cool VFX elements to it that are pretty insane how they were even able to pull them off in the first place. With all that being said though, if we were to look at one impressive stunt in this film that we could cover, it would have to be the swinging in between the building stunt.
Yep.
It's a really funny stunt and one you could be forgiven for assuming that it was just done for real, as it's something Tom Cruise would most likely figure out how to do for real today. But it actually was, again, a clever combination of VFX and real capture plates, with Tom Cruise performing the stunts on a stage with green screen.
Tom actually chose to do this run and this jump.
He had to walk up to the edge of the building, look over and say, okay, and I jump out into space over there.
Now, with that being said, Cruise would still perform that jump in the studio, and it was a decent jump at that.
Cable, he just went back 30 paces and just ran and launched himself into space.
That allowed us to follow him as he went off.
Our sponsor Squarespace is also introducing us to a new way of designing a website with its new design intelligence. And it's a lot. All right, now we're getting into some of the serious stunts of the franchise. And who would guess that one of the most absurd stunts will be directed by this guy, Brad Bird, who up until this point had only directed animated films like the...
Yeah, Brad Bird he came from Pixar. He was the director of The Incredibles. That's his background. And so when I found out that Brad Bird was directing a Mission Impossible, I thought, what? The guy directs animation. How could he possibly direct an action movie? And not just any action movie, but Mission Impossible. And god damn it, did he pull off one of the most incredible fucking stunts I have ever seen in my life. To this day, probably the greatest, the most jaw-dropping, the most terrifying stunt I have ever seen. Let's go.
Incredibles, or Ratatouille, and The Iron Giant. And he wanted to go big for his debut live-action film. So he brought in an IMAX camera.
I pushed hard in the earliest meetings I had where Tom Cruise, J.J. Abrams, and I went to Paramount to discuss what we wanted to do with this movie. And I pitched the idea of shooting several sequences in IMAX. For me, the most immersive experience was actually filming in IMAX because the detail and the clarity is just unparalleled.
And what did he want to use that IMAX camera for? Just to stick it out of the window of the Burj Khalifa thousands of feet up in the air?
Woo!
And yes, the IMAX camera wouldn't be the only thing outside the building. Tom Cruise would decide he wanted to play around thousands of feet up in the air with the IMAX camera for this insane stunt as well.
Insane. Yikes, man.
Now, how did they pull off this complicated stunt? There were a lot of challenges ahead for the crew, mainly ones that had to do with trust from the Dubaians they ended up working with, as shooting for Mission Impossible 4 ended up being a complicated affair and even required some modifications to the Burj Khalifa itself. And officials in the country and engineers for the building were not overly convinced that this could work.
Oh, I'll bet.
We would have to drill into the ground, we'd have to drill into the ceilings, and we had to get permission for every hole that we drilled. And we had to start taking windows out. And these are windows that had never been taken out and aren't meant to come out.
The crew meticulously documented and obtained permission for each drilled hole to secure large cameras and cranes and fixtures. However, other modifications, such as smashing windows to allow Tom Cruise and the camera to poke out of the building, required negotiation and approval with the engineers.
I hate heights too, Raven. I do have a fear of heights. And that's one of the reasons why this stunt to me is one of the most incredible things I have ever seen. And again, see, I'm a skeptic, right? I'm a skeptic. And when I heard that this was Tom Cruise and that he had actually filmed this, it wasn't a stuntman, it wasn't a stand-in, and that it really was filmed at the Burj Khalifa, I said, no, bullshit, And then I watched the making of, and I thought, holy shit, the guy is crazy. And this was the film where apparently the insurance company said, absolutely not, we're not going to cover it. And Tom Cruise fired them, and he found another insurance company that would. And I wonder how much they had to pay for the coverage for this movie. I can't even imagine the sum that they had to pay to cover for Tom Cruise doing this insane fucking stunt. And it wasn't just this stunt, it was the other stuff in this movie. I loved this movie. Loved it. Let's go.
Who again thought it was crazy to try and take out the windows.
At first, there was a big resistance about taking them out, and we said, look, if windows can go in, they can come out. If we can't do that, then we can't do the sequence. So there were conversations that took place about that, and everyone found a way to do it.
Oh, that's high.
The crew strategically smashed 26 windows at different locations, providing better access for the stunt team, IMAX cameras, and Tom Cruise. And it's hard not to imagine how this worried some of the engineers, or even what could happen if a window went the wrong way and
Yikes,
plunged
man.
thousands of feet below.
Right.
But thankfully, it all worked out. However, this created 26 gaping holes in the exterior of the skyscraper, meaning that, someone could fall out of it now. So to ensure safety, additional holes were drilled into the ceiling near the opening of the windows to secure safety hooks.
Safety became a huge issue. So we had to create these red boxes that were taped out, and anybody who stepped inside of that tape had to have a harness and had to be tied off.
Even though this was super high up, stuntmen perceived little difference in risk between working at 50, 500, or even 1,000 feet. Regardless of the height, equipment failure or
Look at that.
recklessness results in the same outcome: a fatal fall. The only assistance available then is from a funeral service. Though I can't imagine that the psychological aspect of it just goes away with such a scientific thought.
It was like 4 a.m. Suddenly my eyes just snapped open and I realized the star of our movie is like swinging around on the outside of the tallest building and the world held on by like a tiny wire.
The team would also construct a replica of the Burj Khalifa's exterior windows in a studio and use heat lamps to simulate the intense heat of the sun. So crews trained on this replica to rehearse the movements and acclimate to the heat before filming on the actual building.
And it was also physically getting training in the harness. And I would do speed climbs where for 30 minutes I would just climb up and down, so that I was ready when the camera was ready and that no one would be waiting for me.
Although they were able to capture all of the shots they needed safely, this was a nightmare for VFX artists. It was a huge challenge to remove the safety rig wires used in filming Tom Cruise climbing the Burj Khalifa.
Yikes.
The building's mirrored exterior and multiple wire reflections made it difficult to track and paint out the wires. But in the end, through all of this incredibly difficult work, they would get one of the most iconic stunt sequences of all time.
Yep. Look at that.
Mission Impossible Rogue Nation brought yet another director change, though this would be the final time a new director would get his hands on the franchise, with Christopher McQuarrie taking full control over the last half of the franchise films. And for his opening sequence of the film, he decided to kick off his debut Mission Impossible film with an insane stunt.
Look at that. Amazing.
In all honesty, how Cruise was able to pull off this stunt without falling off is pretty simple. Tom Cruise really did hang off of a plane, but with minimal safety equipment. The only safety measures were a wire leading to the camera and a strap attached to the plane's side door, which prevented him from being blown away by the wind. Though Cruise did mention how difficult it was to stay with his feet planted on the plane, even with all of that attached to him.
There was an incredibly precise margin of error in the throttle. The plane had to be going fast enough to stay airborne, but it couldn't be going so fast that Tom simply would be torn off regardless of what safety measures we had.
Okay, Crochetter, and what is my reaction to this shot? God damn it. God damn it, Tom Cruise. Yeah, I'm a fan. Just a bit. I'm a bit of a fan. Let's continue.
The fuselage also required several modifications, including a mount to hold the attached camera. However, these modifications needed to be proposed first, as there was anxiety and doubt surrounding the feasibility of such a stunt.
Airbus did not know for certain that the plane could structurally deal with what we were considering.
We basically looked at you like you were crazy, to be honest. So we had to convince them. So from my side, it was a lot of drawings and engineering and a lot of talks and letting them trust me.
The danger doesn't only lie in potentially falling off, however. There were a litany of potential dangers that could happen at any time.
Of course.
A bird could impact crews, which could lead to serious injury or death.
As he came in, he hit an owl. He hit it so hard, you can actually see the feathers.
We simply could not control the variable of birds flying in the path of that airplane. And if a bird hit Tom at that speed, on any part of his body, that would have been the end.
A piece of debris could get flung in Tom's direction as well.
Any particle that could hit me, even a small little rock.
If it was sucked into the propeller and hit Tom, it would be traveling at the speed of a bullet.
And to top it all off, the jet exhausts are toxic and could poison crews due to his proximity to the engines. Yet despite all of these dangers and concerns, Tom Cruise seemed to enjoy himself and would do 8 more takes of the sequence.
8.
And this stunt would almost cause McQuarrie to not direct the next film because he couldn't imagine doing anything crazier than that. You know.
Okay, so 8 takes of the sequence. What is it, Crochetter? God damn it. 8 takes. 8 takes. Can you imagine? Can you imagine any other movie star agreeing to go through all this shit? Of course not. Of course you can't. Let's continue.
Until he did do many more stunts that were just as insane. Fallout is certainly the correct title for this film, as Tom Cruise really does fall out of a lot of stuff. Out of the side of a window, off of a rope attached to a helicopter, off of a roof, breaking his ankle, and from a halo jump he did
there
for
we
real.
go.
And though that halo jump might feel like the place to go for this film when talking about stunts, don't worry, we will cover that in our upcoming video on the production of this film on May 20th. But Tom Cruise did something that I think warrants some discussion on this film in particular. And that happens to be that he actually flew a helicopter through the mountains.
Of course he
Tom
did.
and I have been talking about for years creating a helicopter chase. That means shooting the star of your movie, flying one of the helicopters.
It's crazy enough to have an actual aerial stunt scene happening for a feature film, let alone the star of your film flying a helicopter for that said stunt. And training to pilot a helicopter is not something that can be done by skipping steps.
I fly aerobatic airplanes and warbirds. I'm a pilot. But helicopters, I'd really never flown. I wasn't licensed.
So we started Tom's training almost 2 years ago and learning to fly helicopters. We got him his license, and then he spent the next year or so practicing.
Tom Cruise would really take to the training, reportedly working 16 hours a day to reach the 2,000-hour milestone required for the helicopter training. But Tom Cruise wouldn't just be flying a helicopter normally. He'd be flying it with 13 other helicopters close by, and with...
But Crochetter, he ran with a broken foot. He flew a helicopter. He rappelled off the side of the Burj Khalifa. And you saw what he did in the new one, right? With those prop planes. And I thought that I loved, what's her name? Beyond the trailer, Grace's observation that it was like an Indiana Jones sequence out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was so true. Motherfucker. Nobody works harder than this man. This man earns every penny. Every single penny. Just the hardest working man in Hollywood, by far.
The mountains everywhere around them.
The mountains cause wind and they cause turbulence. It takes a while. There's no substitute for experience.
Although this scene was supposed to be taking place in Norway, they would film in New Zealand as the location in Norway that they were shooting at didn't allow for them to fly helicopters through the mountains, or at least how they were doing it for this stunt. But this location in New Zealand offered the perfect location for the stunt, as they were set up to accommodate this sort of thing. But though Cruise had finished his training and they found their location, they still had to find the right helicopter for the job.
We were looking desperately for a helicopter. We wanted something that was highly maneuverable, but you also wanted something that had enough of an open glass canopy that you could see out and you could see in. That led us to the Airbus 125, which is a fantastic, fantastic helicopter.
Now that they found their helicopter, they would develop a whole new camera system to capture Cruise's performance, because not only was he flying a helicopter, but he was also acting while doing it.
Well, in the 15 years that I've been building camera mounts, we always try to get the camera mounts as close to the aircraft as possible, because the tighter in you get, the more stable they are. But now we're seeking to put them way out in space, and that's been a challenge.
And by the way, mad respect for the incredible crews that work on these movies. The crew is top-notch. The cameramen, the flight instructors, the stunt coordinators, the location scouts. I mean, this guy is working with the best of the best. Absolutely, always, 100%. Imagine how terribly wrong any of this could have gone. And the fact that it not only went off beautifully, and yes, Tom Cruise was running with a broken foot in that sequence. When he jumped from one rooftop to another, he broke his ankle and kept going. What a trooper.
We had to go experimental mode on this. Everything is way beyond what you could get certification on a normal, everyday commercial flying machine.
Once they were finally airborne and ready to do the stunt, it became even more difficult to coordinate what was happening with so many helicopters in the air. So communication was really key.
We're flying in the mountains. It's some of the most dangerous conditions to fly in, and you have to really know what you're doing because the mountains can kill you.
It's extremely narrow, and we're shooting with an extremely wide lens. The sense of claustrophobia in there was very extreme.
And to make this all the more dangerous, Cruise trained hard to be able to perform a difficult corkscrew maneuver.
It's an alpine descent. The risk of that is you can overspeed the rotor head and the blades. And if they overspeed for too long, they just literally pop off. And then you're just a rock that drops.
And of course, Tom Cruise pulled it off perfectly.
Whoa, too much.
It should be pretty obvious which stunt would get picked for this film. I mean, how do you not cover someone jumping a bike off the side of a cliff and then parachuting down the rest of the way?
Yep.
We've been working on this for years. We're going to shoot it in Norway. There would be a motorcycle jump off a cliff into a base jump. Wanted to do it since I was a little kid. It all comes down to one thing: the audience.
The audience's demand for bigger and bolder stunts was met with this motorcycle jump. While it may appear simple, the stunt required Tom Cruise to train with experts in motorbiking, base jumping, and speed flying.
For base training, advanced skydive training, a lot of canopy skills, a lot of tracking.
Tom Cruise, he's an amazing individual. You tell him something and he just locks it in.
The production team practiced alongside Cruise to ensure they could safely capture the stunt, using specialized equipment such as Z-cams to get close-up shots during the stunt.
Coming up with the stunt is only one of the technical challenges. The other is putting a camera in a place that you can see where Tom is doing it. Finding the right lens, the right platform, the right medium. Even 2 years ago, the cameras didn't exist.
Now, there were some problems to figure out, namely weather conditions and how they could impact the jump. And of course, making sure that every time Cruise did the jump, it was consistent and got him far enough away from the cliff. Luckily, during the training, the production team would carefully track Cruise's jumping by attaching a GPS to him and taking careful weather data to understand how to get a consistent and safe shot.
And by doing this multiple times, we were able to get a consistent set of data
so that each take we can see what height I am. So this way we can set drones and cameras in places where I can go right into close-up.
Preparation.
You see, all of this stuff, everything that you're seeing, this is why I can't fully hate Hollywood. I can't do it because the talent that is required to be able to create just one set piece in one of these movies is amazing. And I have so much respect for the skill, the talent, the artistry, the dedication, the stick-to-itiveness of people who work in the movies, who make movies that are like this. You know, we can sit in the audience, we can take it for granted, we can take it all in, but when you look at the behind the scenes and how much work it took to create one set piece, it's amazing. And my understanding is that they create the set pieces. They come up with the set pieces and they work the script around the set pieces. Amazing. Let's go.
Was key for these stunts, as the fewer times you had to repeat the stunt, the better for everyone involved. Now, with all of that preparation complete, it was time to finally do it for real on top of a mountain in Norway, a place the production team had experience filming in, as in just the last film they had to build an entire media village on top of a remote ledge.
Crazy.
And just like the previous film, they would have to fly everything in by helicopter, taking months to construct the pieces for the stunt. And it all had to be precisely built to specifications based on their initial testing, and any deviation from that could prove fatal for Cruise.
The challenge is finding the cameras, it's the amount of preparation, and then it's weather.
You want the light to be right, you want the clouds to be right, misty but not foggy. This weather right here is exactly what we're looking for.
With the right weather conditions in place, Cruise would get ready for the craziest jump of his life.
Yikes.
And likely just for fun for him, he would do the stunt a total of 6 times that day.
6 times, Crochetter. 6.
One last time.
With the Mission Impossible 8 hitting theaters, it seems like McQuarrie and Cruise upped the stakes yet again. Cruise seemingly so hell-bent on getting the perfect stunt that McQuarrie had to shut him down on one particular stunt, saying, "I truly wanted to puke thinking about the stress. It was intense." He approached me to do number 20, and I said, "You're done. Do not anger the gods."
Look at that face.
Hi, everyone.
Look at him.
Wish I could be there with you. I'm stifling the extra noise.
This is a man in his 60s, okay? This is a man in his 60s. What the actual fuck? And I'm really sorry that Ghost Protocol didn't do better in the theater, because seriously, the artistry, the amazing, just the amazing set pieces, and they didn't even include the train sequence, and not just any train, but the Orient Express. Great stuff.
Mission Impossible 8, Tom Cruise will be hanging from a biplane, doing some insane underwater sequence, which made him accidentally breathe in carbon dioxide, and jumping from a fighter jet, and jumping from an aircraft carrier into the ocean. Now, as far as the details are concerned for those stunts, we don't have a lot of details just yet, but we will be covering it in our production of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning video that comes out on May 22nd, and the whole Mission Impossible series starting on May 15th, with new episodes releasing every day until the movie releases. And you can check out the rest of that series right here.
Great job. Great job. I am so excited for this new movie. In my looking into the new movie, the consensus is that the first hour of the movie kind of sucks, but that, and it's way too long, it's like 3 hours long, that the last 2 hours of the movie are just amazing. So I'm looking forward to it, whether the first hour drags or not or whatever. It doesn't matter, okay? I'm sorry to say goodbye to the series, because I've loved Mission Impossible, but good for him for, going out with a bang. That's terrific. Good for you, Tom Cruise. I wish that Justin Theroux would write you a script that is based on the character that you played in Tropic Thunder. Was it Les Grossman? Amazing. And I want a dance sequence from you again. Okay, so before we go, I wanted to send, I have one more thing I want to say. And this is about Shikara Transformations. I'm not going to play her video, okay? But Shikara saw, I saw Shikara respond to a Redditor who posted some critiques of her, and I'm not going to go over them one by one, okay? Because really, what does it matter, okay? This person posting on Reddit, they're just an anonymous person posting comments on a board. They have no impact on you, Shikara. They don't mean anything. I understand that Shikara's pregnant, okay? And I think that the baby is going to be arriving fairly soon. She's upset. She's hormonal. I don't mean to write it off and condescend to her, but I get that she is in a very, very emotional state. I personally think that the video that she made was a mistake. I don't think that she should have addressed what that person on Reddit said. But I will say this. One of the things that this idiot critiqued her on, and the person is an idiot, okay, was her approach to the transgender issue. And Shikara has a very sane take on the transgender thing. She said that as an adult, you should be able to do whatever you want with your body. You should be able to, alter it in whatever way you think, but that when it comes to kids, no. The children should not be drugged, children should not be operated on, and this idiot on Reddit took tremendous exception to it. Because the person who posted on Reddit is obviously a fanatic and cannot understand the concept of decency, nuance, whatever. The reason that I bring this up is because a mini little battle war has broken out between the Redditor in question and Strawberry Douche on Kiwi Farms. And again, the reason that I bring this up at all is not because of what Shikara said. It's not because of her reaction. It's not because she responded to this lunatic on Reddit. But because my heart sang when I saw an absolute explosion of turfy goodness on Kiwi Farms, on the Girl World, Hater Nation, whatever thread. And you saw this coming together of these farmers who responded in kind to Reddit, or this particular Redditor. And I have to say that as somebody who has been discussing the transgender issue for 4 years, back when it was not popular to do so, back when people were contacting my job to let them know that I was a bigot and a transphobe and whatever else, and back when I was at serious risk of being completely alienated for whatever passes for a community, at the time, I felt very, very alone. I was very concerned that Samantha Diva was tagging Keffels and trying to get Keffels to come after me. Keffels, who at the time still had a very large, very powerful community. And Samantha Diva was openly hoping that Keffels was going to destroy my life. Not just my channel, but destroy my life. Come after my employment, come after my family, come after my friends. Just as Keffels, and I won't call him she, had been going after Kiwi Farms and trying to get Kiwi Farms taken down in all this, right? So I have been battling this mob, like I said, for 4 years. And I am so gratified that we have finally reached a point where people can openly say, and I get it, the farmers are anonymous, I understand that. But we have finally gotten to a point where the pendulum has swung so much in the opposite direction that people can actually say what they think. And what is being said now is 100% true. That drugging and mutilating children is a human rights abuse. One of the farmers pointed out, you know, how interesting that since the UK banned the use of puberty blockers, where is this rash of self-deletions that we were told was going to be inevitable to follow? Hasn't happened. All of those statistics were cooked. All of that polling data was cooked. Studies were deliberately buried by medical professionals who stood to profit off of the mutilation and drugging of children. And I can tell you that I am so glad. I am so glad to be able to look over one shoulder and look over the other shoulder and say, at last the cavalry has arrived. I don't give a shit that they're anonymous. I don't care that they are not being identified. I don't care about that. The point is that at last, sanity is prevailing. At last. And to see the outpouring of righteous anger on the farms directed at this lunatic on Reddit who went after Shikara was extremely gratifying. And I want to thank each and every farmer. And I've known for a while now that that thread is full of turfs, okay? It is a turfy thread. It is a thread full of turfy goodness. So I was very, very gratified because I can tell you that having devoted a lot of airtime, a lot of internet time, a lot of personal time to this issue, it is really good to see reinforcements. It's good to see people challenging the medical establishment It's good to see people challenging the political establishment, the educational establishment. And it is good to see that at last there are people who are stepping forward and say, absolutely not. We've got to protect the kids. If you want to be an adult and you want to do whatever you want to do to your body, if you want to become a bodybuilder, if you want to become a model and be super skinny and do that, if you want to go through gender reassign or sex change operation, which, you know, that's a problematic term. If you want to alter your body in any way, shape, or form before the age of 18, the answer must be no. This is not life affirming. This is not life saving. That is a lie. And it is really, really good. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who is now coming forward and saying with their whole chest, that's enough. That's enough. As if Jazz Jennings wasn't enough proof, as if the huge explosion of young girls, more than young boys, going to these clinics, the realization that so many of these kids are on the autism spectrum. We still don't know why there's such a strong connection between autism and identifying as, you know, the opposite sex. We have had enough of loud men abusing women. We've had enough of loud men invading our spaces. And now is the time to say, that's it. Now, everything can be legislated, and everything can be decided over time, except for the thing with the kids. Absolutely not. The medical establishment has been lying to parents, misleading them for years, persuading them that if they do not put their children through this battery of treatments and drugs, that they will lose their child. And that is one of the most grotesque forms of medical malpractice I can imagine. They have frightened parents unnecessarily. And they have driven so many kids into this gender abattoir. Those are my friend Dennis's words, Dennis Kavanaugh. And so, again, thank you to the TERFs on Kiwi Farms. Thank you. Thank you. Some of you have been muttering this for quite some time. Some of you have been quite outspoken, but to see so many of you come out now and express yourselves the way you have on this issue, at last. At last. It's good to have you on board, sisters. It's good to have this turfy support group, if you will. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And it's good to see righteous anger, because everybody should be angry. So, all right, you guys. This was fun. I had a good time today. I was kind of not knowing what the hell it was that I was going to stream about today, but I cobbled something together. I figured we might as well have some fun. I will not be streaming tomorrow, and I don't know if I will be streaming on Monday. I have no idea, because I have to get a procedure done. So we'll see. Maybe I'll feel up to it on Monday. I don't know. So we'll play it by ear. But tomorrow, I definitely will not be around. So anyway, enjoy yourselves and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, wherever you are, and enjoy your Sunday. All right, guys. Thanks again, and I will play us out with Anna's beautiful, beautiful outro. Okay? So thank you, guys, and I will see you guys the next time. Bye-bye.